Welcome to Friday Beyond Spotlights. My name is Nick Chen, a lawyer and lawmaker. I'm your host for this episode. Today's guest is the Permanent Secretary for Housing and the Director of Housing of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region, Rosanna Law. Welcome onto the show.
Thank you, Nick.
What does your role entail as a Permanent Secretary for Housing and as the Director of Housing?
Well, basically, Housing Department or the Hong Kong Housing Authority is the biggest developer of housing in Hong Kong, except that we don't make a profit. So as the Director of Housing, I have to oversee the production of housing, public housing, rental ones, and sales flats. And then for the rental ones, their management. So after building them, we also manage them for the rest of their lives. So we actually oversee the whole cycle of production, management, and redevelopment of public housing.
Is Hong Kong a great place to live in your opinion?
I would definitely say yes. Hong Kong is by itself a small and dense city, but where do you find such connectivity? Where do you find such accessibility?
Right.
You can be in a country park, you can be in the CBD, you can be in the best universities in the world. Apart from that, Hong Kong has freedom to information, free access to all the media. Living in Hong Kong, people here can, at their fingertips, have a lot of information, which I can say is not always the case in many parts of the world, even in a lot of major international cities. And also we are safe. Contrary to a lot of misconception that maybe in these few years, Hong Kong might not be very safe. Actually, we have a very good law and order situation. Our crime rate is actually declining. So you feel safe walking in our streets, even in midnight. And again, that is not the same thing in a lot of cities in the world.
Do you have the regular size of housing in Hong Kong?
In the 2022 policy address, the first one under Chief Executive John Lee, we promised that the public subsidized sales flats in Hong Kong will now have to be at least 26 square meters per unit. We cannot be smaller than that.
Good.
And then in our public housing, because we have identified more land for public housing construction, we are now able to enhance the living space per capita.
Yes.
So for those public rental housings developed and completed in 2030 to 31, I think we will be able to allow a 10% increase of internal living space for our tenants.
Have you found enough land? It's always been a difficulty in past administration to meet the projected needs of the population for public housing?
Yes, and when we say we, this is primarily the effort of the Development Bureau of our government. And under the one government, I can say that we found sufficient land. In the 10-year looking forward, we have already found sufficient land for the production of over 308,000 flats in Hong Kong. And those are just for public housing. We have another 100,000 or so coming for private. So all in all, we'll be going to have about 440,000 flats in Hong Kong in the next 10 years. In terms of public housing, since we have a proportion of 70% rental housing, 30% sales housing, public housing, we'll be able to shorten the waiting time. Meanwhile, providing options for people to climb up the home ownership ladder.
You talk about shortening the waiting time. Well, but who would qualify to wait? Who would qualify to apply?
So right now, the eligibility criteria would be low-income families. Of course, we have set out all the asset and income requirements, which perhaps we don't have time to go into detail here. But suffice to say that, yes, it is not a very lenient requirement or eligibility criteria, primarily because our public resources for public housing are precious.
Does race and ethnicity have anything to do with the qualification?
No. We have a very good equal opportunity system in Hong Kong. As long as you are a Hong Kong permanent resident, and then you meet the income and asset criteria, you'll be able to apply for public housing.
Neighboring jurisdiction like Singapore, I think they charge an extra 60% stamp duty for foreigners coming to buy. Do we have that here in Hong Kong?
We don't have extra stamp duty for non-Hong Kong residents. We will continue adjusting and reviewing our housing policy to meet the changing needs of people, changing aspiration of people.
Do you have a percentage of the number of families in Hong Kong who live in family homes?
I think it's almost 50%. That is including our private market and also our public but subsidized sales flats. So it's not that low a figure.
Right.
However, of course, we also have about 46% living in our public housing, and that includes both rental and owned properties.
How does public housing system assist people to achieve social mobility upwards?
Take me as an example. I actually grew up in public housing estate, Shek Yam Estate, when I was 3 years old until I was 20-something. So that created a good platform for me, a stable, safe home, not big, but enough. The rental was cheap, so it enabled my parents to put resources into my education, my hobbies, and creating a good environment for me.
What if some people, because they're in this great system, they save some money, they bought a property, and then they rent out the property from the public housing? Are they allowed to do that?
Of course not. That is the time when we have to do anti-abuse work very diligently. And we are actually, the entire housing department is doing that. So if people are in need, then of course we welcome them to stay in our public housing system. But if they have the ability, and if their income and revenue had exceeded our limit, then of course we need them to move out. Not that we want to increase their costs, but if they have the ability, then we want to channel our resources into helping people with a greater need, a more urgent need for public housing.
Can I ask, what kind of technology do you use to help people live a better life?
Now, one of the things that we do is trying to see if there are robots that can help us. For example, clean the estate, doing the cleansing work.
Yes.
So if it is successful, then we can introduce them to some other estates. And then we also can have robotic security officer. They can patrol on predestinated routes or through manual control. They can also have the panoramic camera to take down what can possibly be evidence for malpractices or even crime in our estate. Also, dropping of things from height, that can be difficult to monitor. Now we can combine mobile CCTV and then artificial intelligence. We have the AI monitoring the black spots, so to speak. Actually, we use IoT sensors.
Internet of Things.
Exactly, to detect the water level and then whether or not we need to do extra measure to prevent flooding and other potential damage in our estate, in our car parks, and I think that is also very useful.
Rosanna, I love it here. Thank you for welcoming me to Soul Oak Estate. Do you use any public-private partnership for housing in Hong Kong?
Oh yes, basically we use it in some of our subsidized sales flats. We try to leverage on the resources, land resources, financial resources, and also expertise and experience of our private developers, so that we can build more subsidized sales flats with greater speed and a bit of variety.
I'd like to introduce you to a friend who lives here. Grew up in Souk Chun.
Oh, wow.
I'd like to introduce Ivory to you.
Miss. Hello, I live with my parents in Seoul.
Oh, great.
And then today I want to ask you some questions about own a house.
Ooh.
Do you have any advice?
Wow, you want to own a house?
Yeah.
Good thinking.
So,
Well, my advice would be you work hard and get a good job.
Yeah.
Because with the government subsidized program, we have actually improved our program. Now you can take a mortgage out for as long as 30 years. And the
Okay.
down payment
Right.
could be as little as 5 to 10%. So it's actually quite
Wow.
affordable. And like me, if you go out of school and get a good job, you'll be able to save a little bit of money. I suggest you move with your parents as well,
Yeah.
because having your family with you is the biggest treasure in life.
Yeah.
Work hard.
Right. Thank you very much.
Welcome back to Friday Beyond Spotlights. We have with us today the Permanent Secretary for Housing and the Director of Housing, Rosanna Law. Who is Rosanna Law behind the spotlights? In this show and tell segment, Rosanna will show us an item that has a special meaning or significance to her. Rosanna, could you show us a very special item?
Yeah, this one,
Ah,
my father's watch. I live in a public rental estate when I was young, and my father was a taxi driver. But this is a really good watch, I was told. It's a 18-karat gold watch.
it's very nice.
And it must have cost him a fortune when he bought it.
It would.
But my father was not born a taxi driver. He came from a very good family. It's just because of the World War II inhibited his schooling and affected his schooling and life and whatnot. Eventually he became a taxi driver. So with that background, I have to do even better to be on a par with, for example, the elites of the society. So after I joined the government, and eventually when I was sent by the government to Stanford University, one of the best now in the US for a master's degree, I thought, will I be able to catch up or be on a par with them, with my classmates? It's not that far a distance, I found. And so I thought the background and also the education in Hong Kong and also my upbringing in Hong Kong was actually excellent, so that I can be on a par with everybody else in the best schools, one of the best schools in the world. So that was very encouraging.
Yes.
And second of all, I have been the director or commissioner of 2 livelihood departments consecutively. Transport department and then housing department.
Yes.
And being the daughter of a taxi driver and being a daughter of a public estate gives me the excellent preparation, the excellent training course, if you like, for doing our job, my job in these 2 departments. And when I see problems in, for example, the taxi trade, which a lot of people have a lot of say, has a lot of comments, I can also very honestly tell the industry that I am one of you. I came from you guys. And so if I do find things that needs to be improved, I find that from the bottom of my heart, it is not being critical to you, but with a good heart of wanting the industry to improve. And for public housing estate, I feel that I need to give something back to the public housing system, so that people like me, like my family, can get a good platform in the public housing estate, and then to raise their kids, to get some success in the community, move upward socially. And so I think that is my way of giving back to the good nutrient Hong Kong gave me when I grew up.
Do you feel ever inhibited in or feel a glass ceiling as a female and growing up?
No, actually, I think Hong Kong is one of the best places for a female to grow, to develop, and if you work hard enough, to succeed. Of course, we have a lot to thank for. We have the government to thank for primarily, because as a kid, boys and girls are treated exactly the same in schools. Right now, we have discrimination ordinance, making sure that equal opportunities is practiced everywhere. What we treasure is hard work, is diligence, and a true sort of sense of duty, a true sense of wanting to excel.
Now, for yourself, have you experienced any difficult moments in your career? And how did you rise up with your own Lion Rock spirit?
I think a lot of people first came to know me because of the implementation of Hong Kong e-toll last year. It is for the Cross Harbour tunnels and for the other government tunnels, the tag for auto receipt of tunnel tolls. The public saw what we planned as a pilot test in the Cheung Sha area as the full implementation of the entire system. So their aspiration or expectation and our original planning, there's a gap there. And I must admit we should have anticipated that gap a lot better. So that's why we postponed the implementation of that plan for, I think, 2 months, something like that, to make it more complete, to ensure that people learn about it. And at that time, that was a setback for me because I was very lucky. In my career, I don't have many major setbacks, I have to say. Very lucky, and I thank God for that. I'm really grateful to the trust of my bosses, to the accommodation of Hong Kong people, and also to, in particular, the driving community, the car owners and the drivers. They really worked together with me, with my department at the time, the transport department, to eventually turn this thing into a success. I am actually a firm believer of where there's crisis, there's an opportunity.
And were there other crises in your life, maybe outside the public space, public view, that you had to overcome?
I think when my father was taken ill, he had cancer. Because I'm an only child and my mother passed away at that time. So I have to take care of my father myself. By myself, of course, I have the excellent support of the hospitals and the elderly homes. So I try my best to take time out of my work schedule, my other schedule, to see him. And it was a major challenge. And because I was close to my father, I'm an only child, so it was not easy. But I think eventually, because he was also, like me, a Christian, so he passed peacefully and with the hope of going to his heavenly home. And that is a great comfort to me. But those 4 or 5 months, not easy at all.
But his faith and spirit lives on through you.
Yeah.
So how do you see, what are the important qualities in leadership in the public service?
I think first and foremost, a heart and a determination to serve the public. You want to serve the public for good, to bring them some benefit, some happiness. You may not be able to solve all the problems in one go or by yourself. You're not Superman, but you can be determined to do your best, give your best. I think a mission to serve and perseverance, coupled with diligence, those are the most important elements.
What do you want to change?
I want people living in public rental house estates to have a better life, in that they feel happy, taken care of in the public rental estates. But in the meantime, I also want to instill the culture that they all accept this is not forever, because I want them to develop, growth, get affluence, so that they be able to climb up the home ownership ladder and spare the housing resources for families more in need, so that we have a circulation and we have the consistent upward social mobility.
Now, we come to our rapid fire segment where we get up close and personal with our guests. Rosanna, I will fire some rapid fire questions at you. Are you ready?
I'll do my
Say
best.
the first thing that comes to mind. What is your favorite mode of travel?
Railway,
Place to eat?
my home.
Comfort food?
My mother's turnip pudding during Chinese New Year.
Biggest guilty pleasure?
Chocolate popcorn in a cinema.
Yummy. A place to travel?
I have to say Japan.
Favorite hobby?
Singing,
Favorite place in Hong Kong?
Victoria Harbour Front.
Your first job?
I've been a civil servant all my life, so government.
Who do you admire?
Noah in the Old Testament, Genesis, because he was building an ark before the big flood, and everybody was mocking him, discouraging him, even criticizing him, disapproving him. But ultimately, it turns out he was right. And his ark was the key to the survival of the human race.
Hidden talents?
I do water sports. I swim, I paddle the dragon boats. I'm a rescue scuba diver.
Wow. What about a talent you wish you have?
Painting.
Is there one thing you'd like to change about yourself?
To be more patient.
Your proudest moment?
When I first got top in class when I was in primary 1.
What would be the title of your autobiography?
Oh, never thought I would write one, but Rosanna, just me.
The qualities you admire most about your parents?
They're hardworking, they're diligent, and they're honest people.
Biggest fear?
Sickness.
Biggest misconception about you?
That I am a workaholic. I can tell you I'm not.
Legacy you wish to leave behind?
I want to do something good for the Hong Kong people.
What advice would you give to your younger self?
Be nice to people.
Describe Hong Kong in one word.
Phoenix.
Well, that's all the time we have today. Thank you, Rosanna. And see you next time on Friday Beyond Spotlight.
Thank you.
你屋企有冇煮嘢食啊？自己？
我做㗎，我煮㗎。
我都有
係啊，
我都有
煮㗎。
係。
所以點解我頭先答你嗰個 rapid fire 嗰度，我係話favorite place to eat 就係屋企咯。因為我中意請朋友翻嚟我屋企食飯。咁好。咁啊，但係而家做到呢個位係少咗機會。辛苦啦。係少咗機會。辛苦。我又同埋因為星期六 church 好多嘢啦。因為我唱 choir。係。